Rahman Rahim. Today's topic of discussion is UTI in children, and this is one of the chapter in Nielsen textbook of Paediatrics. So we will be discussing UTI bit by bit, and so urinary tract infections are very common in children, and they are more common under age of 1 year, and the prevalence of afebrile symptomatic UTI in children over age 1 year is 8%, and the prevalence in febrile infant is 7%. So it's a very common problem, and but before embarking into what is how UTI is classified, how it is diagnosed, we will start with some definitions of, for example, pyuria. So number one is with pyuria we define it as greater than 10 cells per ml in an uncentrifuged sample of urine. Are greater than 5 cells, or some authorities say 3 to 6 cells per high power field in a centrifuged sample. Similarly, we also classify UTI on the basis of lower UTI versus upper UTI. So lower UTI we define is, normally we call it cystitis, and if it involves kidney, we call it upper UTI or pyelonephritis. So these are the broadest two categories that we classify UTI into: cystitis and upper UTI, which is pyelonephritis, and this is a different a different kind of involvement of kidney. Can be like, say, renal abscess, pyelonephric abscess, and like the complication of pyelonephritis. Urethritis is considered as an independent entity, but with cystitis there may be some features of urethritis also, but it's usually an independent entity. Okay, another classification is, we call it simple and complicated UTI. So simple UTI, we call it, there are the typical symptom like dysuria, frequency, urgency. We call it simple UTI, and usually this may be due to this is usually due to cystitis. On the other hand, complicated UTI is the UTI if there is very high grade fever, in addition to the signs of simple UTI, there may be a very high grade fever, signs of systemic toxicity, dehydration and vomiting, similarly palpable bladder or mass abdomen, oliguria, abnormal imaging, and there might be culture other than E. coli, so non-E. coli organisms may be one of the causes. So if any feature are present, we can call it atypical or complicated UTI sometime. Another definition will be if there is no response to antibiotics in 48 hours. So these could be all the features of an atypical UTI. Okay, so this is a general overview of UTI and how we define UTI on the basis of culture. So it depends wholly solely on the type of sample that we obtain. For example, if it is a suprapubic aspirate, then we can any number of colony forming unit will be significant, and we can call it a suprapubic. We can call it UTI, culture-prone UTI, on the basis of clean cage. So in clean cage sample greater than 100,000, that is 100,000 units CFU per ml, and in a catheterized sample we say greater than 50,000 CFU per ml. So the order is that any number in a suprapubic aspirate, and then we have a catheterized sample that should be greater than 50,000 units. In a clean cage midstream urine, we can say 100,000 colony-forming unit per ml. These are the definition of culture-prone UTI. There is another term, we call it asymptomatic bacteriuria, asymptomatic, which will be discussed in detail, but it is also defined as greater than 100,000 colony form unit on 2 specimens of single organism, colony forming of single organism here on 2 specimens, and without symptoms of UTI, then we can call it is an asymptomatic bacteriuria. So these are the definitions, some of definition, and it doesn't need to be treated, because there is evidence that if you treat asymptomatic bacteriuria, it usually disturbs the microbiome of the urinary tract, and it may cause symptomatic UTI if you treat asymptomatic bacteriuria. Now, coming back to the textbook, so we will be highlighting some important some of the important points in the textbook in the next video.